Hey, Mondo, this is so cool being with you. Here we are in Oklahoma at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. This is like the 4,000th annual conference or whatever.
Exactly.
This is so cool. I remember the first time I was invited to a Prophecy Watchers Conference several years ago. And great seeing you too.
Yeah, and we were here 2 years ago, which is on October 7th. So this is where that Saturday morning we were here. Yeah,
that is right. I was supposed to go to Israel like 2 days later. Marzulli was too that day, I think.
Yeah, he was leaving on Sunday, the next day.
Wow.
And neither one of you went, right?
Neither one of us went. I've been back several times since. Mm-hmm. Gosh, there's so much to talk about even now. So I want to get into a lot of different areas with you, and a couple of them are areas where I think even people in Bible prophecy, they're like, well, I thought this was this, or I thought that was that. The Daniel 9 covenant, what is it really about? Because we've been hearing for years, it's about peace.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. The red heifer.
Sure.
I want to talk about that. I have some opinions that might be a little bit different than yours, but you've written on it. Mm-hmm. And so I really want to get answers. And my hope is that we'll all be educated and people will be able to understand that we can have differences.
Absolutely.
It's okay as long as we understand that our salvation is in Christ Jesus. And this isn't going to affect our salvation or anything like that. But to educate, and then something else people don't know, both you and I were senior pastors. Yeah. And we both turned over the pulpit to somebody else about the exact same time to do prophecy full time. Yep. And so here we are. Yeah. And this is great.
I think it's important to reiterate that all of us, when it comes to prophecy and the fulfillment of prophecy, I hold it very loose. I'm strong pre-trib, of course, and the over futurist, certainly for Israel and stuff, but how things are going to, the details, I expect, especially in the book of Daniel, Daniel 12:4, he tells Daniel, the angel tells Daniel, seal it up until the time of the end, and then, which implies that it's going to be unsealed, the understanding, because then he says knowledge is going to increase, right? So I expect that we're going to be modifying, refining our views until the Lord returns a little bit. We have the general framework, which I think is correct, but we should definitely not be, we should be willing to have differences and be like, oh, that's good. All right, I'm going to modify that. Doesn't mean I failed. I didn't understand the gospel. Prophecy is very, a lot of it's going to change. 10 Kings, even talking about that. We've talked about that before. Different perspectives. I'm not dogmatic on really any of it, except Jesus is coming back. That's for sure.
I'm very similar. I've taught through the book of Revelation, I think 5 times now, and I'm getting ready to start it again. And every time I go through it, I think, wait a minute, that's not right. And I taught that in the past. And I do believe the closer we get to the second coming of Christ, the more clarity we have.
Sure.
I think it's like for the mark of the beast. Now we can go, this is like a no-brainer. But will it happen exactly like this? Probably not, but we have a really good idea of tools that are already developed that it's like, it's so obvious.
Well, let me ask you on that, because, 15 years ago, teaching through the mark of the beast, we have barcodes, the scan, the different things to store, but I don't remember anybody of the main people that I've ever read talking about vaccines.
Yeah.
Did you? Had you ever heard that before 5 years ago, or 10 years ago?
No, maybe somebody did and we both missed it.
Maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe they did, but it wasn't mainstream.
No, and I do remember talking about RFID chips probably 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah, RFID, yeah.
But it was in 2020 when we heard about Bill Gates. Hey, I've got a tattoo, and people forgot about that. And it was all centered around that, and yet here we are, 2025, looking at 2026, and going, hey, Bill Gates is saying, this tattoo's still here, and it's not, and it's also, you have this patent number that was 666, which is another story in and of itself. But back to what you said, I totally agree. We're going to have more clarity, but I really believe when Daniel wrote that, or the angel told him, it's not for you, it's for the time of the end. During the tribulation period, the people who come to faith in Christ, they are going to get it.
Yes.
In fact, even the mark of the beast, where it's the number of a man, the number is 666. I don't think until the people are in the tribulation, it's going to trigger them. They're going to go, we know exactly what that is and who that is. They will figure it out. It's like, I'll put it there, but there's certain things we can speculate on and kind of get into some territory that we need to be careful on too. But I liken it to the first coming of Christ. So you have prophecies, the Messiah is going to be born in Bethlehem. He's going to come out of Egypt. He's going to be from the Galilee. All these different dynamics from him. You're going, well, how could that be? There's not a person who lived, not one that could have said, well, Caesar Augustus is going to issue a decree, and Quirinius is going to be the governor, and there's going to be this young couple up in Nazareth, and there's going to be, and she's going to be pregnant by it's going to be a virgin thing, and she's going to come, and because of a census, and then Herod's going to want to kill all the Jewish boys, so the family's going to have to flee to. Nobody could have figured that out. Not a person even could have put it ahead of time. Well, it's because of this Augustus thing. The Messiah is going to be born in Bethlehem. How can he be from all three of those areas? With the Bible, we know, and I think it's the same way.
Because you would have a contradiction there. I mean, theoretically,
you would have a theoretic.
This is contradiction, and I imagine the Jewish people at the time were trying to puzzle that out because can anything good come out of Galilee? I mean, they were they questioned these things, but yet God's like, just watch.
and amazing, and yet it was through the scriptures also where Matthew 16 Jesus says, you should have known. And how could you not know based on Daniel's prophecy for the first 69 weeks? So, but I mean, I think sometimes in the prophecy world we get too dogmatic. And then people pull out their calculators and do math, and they do this, and it can get into a whole mess. And one of them is what I want to talk to you about now. And again, take this anywhere you want. Is Daniel chapter 9. And I was watching some of the podcasts you had done about it, and then you had sent me your article too, and I look and go, I have asked that same question. Is where in Daniel chapter 9 does it say that this is a peace treaty? And it's been part of the traditional prophecy teaching as long as I've been
that's what I used to teach, right? That's what I learned as a young believer.
You can make the case, and I'll show you a couple of places you can make the case, but I lean towards you on that. I look at it, and so I want to go back and forth on that. Then I want to look at what you also say the covenant actually is, because that intrigued me when you said that, and I want to see how that fits. So, okay, peace treaty. Why do you suppose people call it a peace treaty, or why is it not necessarily? That's not what it is.
I think that in my article I addressed some objections in that because again, these are same things. If you would ask me 5 years ago, or as I taught, I would have said, and they said, well, why is it a peace treaty? Oh, well, 1 Thessalonians 5. When they are saying peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them, and so that has been the general I would say support verse for why. So they're taking that passage that was talking about the arrival of the day of the Lord, and what you have at the arrival of the day of the Lord is peace. It says it crystal clear, and then destruction begins. It doesn't just happen in a moment. The seals are open, and then a 7-year destruction begins to take place on the world, because not everybody's dead in a moment, right? So that's typical. And then what you see as well, because of the conflict of Israel since their inception, 48 war, 56 war, 6-day war, Yom Kippur war, 82. I mean, you can name them all. The thing that comes up is because Daniel 9:27 mentions sacrifices. It mentions the sacrifices being stopped. And so that very clearly that there's going to be a third temple. So people are thinking, well, wait a minute, you can't, there's no way the Jews are going to build a third temple because of the Arabs hate them and the Muslims hate them. And so the Antichrist is going to have to come in and through power and to be able to subjugate the resistance of the Arabs and the Muslims, he will then enforce a peace treaty. This is the idea. He'll enforce a peace treaty where then Israel will have the freedom to build their temple, even though the rest of them, I mean, they're going to be screaming and yelling, but the Antichrist is going to have such power that he's going to prevent that, and he's going to enforce peace on them. Now, and then you have the other thing, too, as it comes to, depends on the version, English, some say make a covenant, some say confirm, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of back and forth on that. But some people will say, well, the covenant that he's going to confirm or enforce is a previous treaty of some kind that maybe has been maybe like an Abrahamic Accords, and he's going to come in and he's going to put his military might behind it. And so that's the general argument, which I don't accept, but that's the general argument.
Okay, so let's work through this, because I want to get to the Mosaic covenant.
Yes.
Because that's what really caught my attention. I go, okay, well, I want to hear what you have to say on that, because when we look at Israel and you think, okay, how are they going to build a temple? And the time of Jacob's trouble, although we can say it's the entire seventh year, the real problem started at the midpoint of the tribulation period. It appears in Jerusalem the people have peace. They're thinking, hey, things are going well. We've got the temple back. Things are going good.
Yep.
So they have that surrounding them. In Isaiah chapter 28, I don't know if you take that as a passage regarding the same covenant.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Which I mean, your covenant with death. That
right, the covenant with death. So so this basically what Isaiah chapter 28 is it says, therefore hear the word of the Lord, you scornful men who rule this people who are in Jerusalem. I look at that and think, scornful men who rule Jerusalem, would that be the Knesset?
Right.
You start looking at it, and you got to wonder. But this is what God says. Who else is ruling Jerusalem?
Yep.
Because you have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we are in agreement. When the overflowing scourge passes through, it will not come to us, for we have made lies our refuge. Under falsehood we have hidden ourselves. So I look at that and go, okay, Israel enters into, I look at it still being future. So I tend to equate it with Daniel chapter 9. Some say it happened in the past, but I haven't seen anything definitive that says it happened in the past. But nevertheless,
like a previous covenant or something.
Like a previous covenant.
Oh, like maybe the Oslo or Accords or something.
Something
even more
in Israel's ancient history.
Oh, okay.
So I don't see that.
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's
so I still see it in the future. But it's interesting. He says here, it appears the rulers of Jerusalem know it's a lie, but they enter into it anyways. Right? We can look at current events and go, you can't actually believe this is real, right? You can't actually believe you can trust Qatar. Anyway, that's another
exactly
story.
Right.
But they made lies their refuge, and then he continues because you want to avoid the scourge. So what's the scourge? Your covenant with death will be annulled, like Daniel 9. It's going to be at the midpoint of the covenant. It's no bueno anymore, right? And your agreement with Sheol will not stand when the overflowing scourge passes through. You'll be trampled down by it as often as it goes out. It'll take you morning by morning. It'll pass over day by night. It will be a terror just to understand the report. So we see it. We're going to avoid this scourge. It is a terror because you can't even to comprehend it. We think with October 7, 2023, babies being put in microwaves and other things that are even grosser than that. You and I are both aware of.
Yep.
So if that type of thing on steroids, if this is future, when this terror comes, there's an annulment, the covenant is annulled, they're trying to avoid a scourge, so there's some type of protection that Israel seems to be promised, if this is still future, if that ties in with
If the Isaiah 28, yeah.
Right, and I will say this, I hesitate to say it's a peace covenant of Daniel 9, because the Bible doesn't say that, although I can say, okay, Israel's promised some kind of safety, it seems, possibly.
Yeah.
There's something that happens with Daniel 9, a covenant with many. There's also one that I have pushed back a lot against is, well, people say, well, it's the rider on the white horse, it's peace, it's a bow, it's no arrows, therefore the white horse is Antichrist who comes in and he conquers. But the problem I have with that is he's not firing a weapon. He's not using military. Okay, but the world was conquered through COVID. The world was and with AI, you can do certain conquering, and it's not necessary
without firing a bullet.
And it could be. And if you have the rider on the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse, it looks like it's more not necessarily a person, but a group who brings this about. So for me, I don't buy into. Because the white horse, and with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, I don't agree because they say peace and safety. That's when this covenant is. And with Isaiah 28, okay, if this is future, is to avoid a scourge, but is it a peace agreement? So I've always been hesitant
Yeah.
to, or I have been, I shouldn't say always, because there's times I've taught it.
Sure, yeah.
But I've come around to this place where I'm going, I am not so sure that you can just say it is a peace agreement. I wouldn't, there may be peace involved.
Yeah.
But it does say in Daniel 9, with that, Daniel 9, it's a covenant with many, and you have suggested that the New King James says a covenant, King James says the covenant.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a difference there. And, yeah.
Okay, so so all of us, what you just is good. So we have Isaiah 28, we got 1 Thessalonians, Revelation 6. You know, we got all these pieces of data, and we're like, well, how can this fit? And so I think in terms of Isaiah 28, the similarity, which it's tempting. I'll say it that way. It's tempting because the word covenant appears that we will then take what the context here, and then try to equate that maybe identically or in continuity with Daniel 9. I think we have to be careful, because just because you have the word covenant doesn't mean it always. I guess I'll say it this way. I was talking to somebody and I said, when I'm reading Daniel 9 or even Isaiah 28, when I read Daniel 9, am I completely lost at what Daniel meaning? Do I need Isaiah to understand Daniel 9? I should be able to understand Daniel 9 within the context. That's the way hermeneutics works, right? You know, I shouldn't. Again, if I'm understanding Romans 9, I don't need to read Galatians 3 to understand Romans 9. Now, that might be some corollary evidence, but if I'm like, man, Paul doesn't, okay. So we need to allow the Bible to speak in its own biblical theological context, okay? So that being the case, I do think this is referring to the agreement that the reception that the Jewish leaders have with the Antichrist. I do believe that they make an agreement with him, okay, clearly, for various, and I'm not even opposed to for security reasons, but I don't think that is exactly what Daniel 9 is saying. Mm-hmm. So if this is doing anything, it's bringing a different angle on that reception
sure.
of the Antichrist, because in Daniel 9, one of the questions that I just ask is first of all, the word shalom, it appears in the book of Daniel, but it doesn't appear anywhere there in Daniel 9 at all. And so as you're reading it, and so one of the questions I ask is, again, when you do hermeneutics, in context, you ask the question, okay, well, for example, how did Daniel use the word berit for covenant? He uses it 7 times in the book, and every time it appears, it's referring to the Mosaic covenant. Every time. And so to me, that's pretty weighty. And so I think, well, okay, is it possible then that, again, not that he can't use the word covenant in a different way, but when you start looking at, wow, if we take that one out, it's 100% that he's speaking about the Mosaic covenant. And sometimes you'll see habarit with the H, the hey there, the definite article. But if you look at the rest of them, sometimes it has the definite article and sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes the translators, because in Hebrew you can do that, you could still say the covenant, but there's no definite article in Hebrew. So the fact that it doesn't say the covenant there in Daniel 9:27 doesn't really mean anything, because again, I can show the inconsistency of the translators in the other one. But even in Hebrew, again, I know Hebrew, but in Daniel 9 it's not complicated. The verb is unusual and unique, but the rest of it's very straightforward. And so literally what it says is, he, the Antichrist, shall cause the covenant to prevail for the many. And then in the middle of the week, he shall bring a ceasing to the offerings.
So that brings in a different clarity.
Yeah. In Hebrew,
yeah.
It is la rabim, which is it's a phrase that appears in Daniel 11:33. So he uses that phrase, and it means the Jews. So many people say, oh, he's making a covenant with the many. This could be surrounding nations. And you're like, okay, I hypothetically, but la rabim is very clear. Again, the same exact phrase. And many times it'll say, in English, it'll say, he's going to confirm a covenant with the many, or with many. They leave out the, but clearly it's a lamed, and a lamed in Hebrew is in front of a word is the, especially with the markings. So that's why and the word prevail is very powerful, because in Psalms 12 is the only other place this particular Hebrew form appears, and all of the English, it says prevail. So it's interesting that what he's doing, the Antichrist, is causing the covenant. What covenant is it? Well, that's up for debate, but he's going to cause it to prevail for the many on their behalf. And so that's why, again, when you look at the rest of Daniel, I just asked the question, well, if the Mosaic covenant is if he's causing that to prevail for them, and then it's not a stretch, because what's the exact next thing that's said? In the middle of the week, he's going to stop the sacrifices and offerings. Well, where'd that come out? Like, dude, when were we talking about sacrifices and offerings? And all of a sudden, that's right in, it's like the next half of the verse. So its next phrase is, so you see, I wouldn't say it's a reach to take the connection of, and if I ask somebody, if he asks a Jewish person, you're there all the time, hey, the temple sacrifices, why are you going to do that? Well, it's a mitzvah. What are you talking about? Oh, don't ask a dumb question. Well, it's a commandment. Yes, it's a mitzvah. Who? Well, Moses, clearly. And if you ask them today, what do they want? And you know this, the Orthodox are irritated with the seculars, because you do have some Sabbath rules, Sabbath laws there, things aren't open, but they want Torah, man. They want Torah to be throughout the entire land of Israel. They want it obligated on everybody, just like in the Old Testament. I mean, they're not any different. And so for them, they're waiting. They're eager for someone to come along and enforce or cause to prevail the Mosaic covenant for the Jews. And when that guy comes, they're going to be, you're our guy. Because if you look, I even have this in the article. I went to like Chabad or Jew, F and Q. If you just ask him, what's the Messiah going to do? Give us your version of the Messiah, not the Christian Messiah, because they reject it. What's the Messiah when he shows up? He's going to cause Torah to prevail. I mean, they use that language. He's going to build the temple. And so for them, when the Antichrist comes on the scene, which again, we believe, John 5:43, that Jesus said, I came in my Father's name, you didn't receive me. Another's going to come in his own name, you will receive him. So when that guy comes and he promises to bring about the temple, to bring about the sacrifices, to bring Torah back in the land, and that's the covenant, the Mosaic covenant that he's causing to prevail, they're going to eat it up. This is what we've been waiting for. Now, let's bring in Isaiah 28. Could it be in agreement with that the scornful rulers, is that referring to the secular people, or is it referring to the religious rulers?
Well, that is, I wanted to go that direction, because to me, if you go back to the time of Jesus and his first coming, who do you have? You have the Sanhedrin.
Yep.
You have this whole Pharisaical approach.
Yep.
Who is Jesus going after?
Yeah. The religious.
And who is he calling wicked? When you look at Matthew chapter 23, woe to you, scribes.
The fruit of vipers.
You look at who are the scornful ones, is the religious. So
religious.
As you were talking, to me, this is really fascinating, because it just totally makes sense. When and I've taught for years, a covenant with many is, you look and it's pretty obvious things are going a particular direction. Every peace covenant of the world is flying around out there, but there's so many of them. Well, which one is it?
Which one is it?
And you have the Abraham Accords, which I always find intriguing. But we can't base it on Abraham covenant, and we have his name's hijacked. Can't do Bible prophecy based on those things. A lot of people do. They do. But this is fascinating. So at the same time, then you go, okay, well, who would come along and do such a thing? Which we're going to get to the red heifers in a minute, right? Who would come along and do such a thing? Well, would it be a Gentile? So we know from Daniel chapter 9, he's of the people who destroyed the city. I want to ask you about that. Yeah. So would it be a Gentile? Could it only be a Jew who would do that? Or, as many people say, Joel Richardson and others, he's Muslim. Yeah. So as we look at that, is it Jew, Gentile? Okay. So if people want, go to prophecywatchers.com/Daniel9. Okay, all one word. And I have a full-length article there. We'll include the full length. Yeah, okay. Because so one of the things that I ask there is, and I at the end of my exegesis of Daniel 9, I say, well, let's talk about what else contributes. Is the Antichrist Jew or Gentile? And so I say, hey, there's different sides. A lot of people is Gentile because of Romans 9:26 or Daniel 9:26, and so. He's coming out of the people of the prince who will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, that's the Romans. But what I ask is, well, wait. I mean, don't be so fast. Don't be either or, because if I asked you, Paul the Apostle, was he a Roman? He was a Roman citizen. He was, and so I list all the evidences. He's able to plead his case to Caesar. Exactly, and remember he said, "Wait, how are you Roman?" He goes, "I bought this." He goes, "I was born a Roman."
So, and then what I did is, so Paul himself is a Jew, but he's a Roman citizen. And so then what I thought, this is interesting. So then I went through, there are at least 10 Roman emperors who were not Italians. Some of them were French, some of them were Assyrian, or like not Assyrian, but like from Syria. Constantine, he wasn't Italian. So now you have Roman emperors that were not Roman. They had other ethnic distinctions, right? But they still were the emperor of this Roman. So in the same way, there's 10. Okay, so this isn't like just an off-liar. Okay, and I list them all in the article. And I say, this guy, this coming ruler, he definitely could be a Roman emperor. He's the leader of the revived Roman Empire. We all agree on that. It's Romans 9 says. Or I keep saying Romans, Daniel 9. But he could have an ethnicity. He could be ethnically Jewish, and he might even be private about that. He could go to them and say, listen, by the way, I'm an ethnic Jew. I have that history, that ethnicity and DNA, but I am the leader. I'm the political leader. Again, like the other Roman emperors were. So to me, I think we don't have to fight about whether it's Jew or Gentile, because in fact you can kind of show that you can argue at both sides. And so, but I'm thinking, well, don't have either. He can blend together, just like historically we have that, and then Paul himself has those distinctions, and so he could come along and he could provide that level of he's the horn of the book of Daniel, of the revived Roman Emperor. The Antichrist is. But they receive him. They receive him. That's pretty strong to me, because when Jesus came and he wasn't received as what? As Messiah. And I find it fascinating. He said that in John 5:43. Well, in John 4, John is writing his book. And in the previous chapter, John 4, it's the only place in all of it's this real clear that early on is the woman at the well. And she says, well, we know when the Messiah comes. And Jesus says, I'm he. So John is now saying, look, reader, I just revealed to you that in my sequence, Jesus is the Messiah. And even the Samaritan woman recognized it. And then Jesus says in the next chapter in his debate, hey, you guys wouldn't receive me. What does that mean? Well, probably a lot of things, but at least as the Messiah. And the other guy that's coming, they're going to receive him as what? At least, in my opinion, as the Messiah.
Another one come in his name, and him you will receive.
You will receive.
So I just find this very intriguing, looking at the rejection of Jesus and what was one of the issues that they had with him. He says, I came to fulfill the law and the prophets. Mm-hmm. And they were very challenged by him, how he healed people on the Sabbath, mm-hmm. Shabbat, the different things that he did. So when we look at this and think, okay, what is it that the Jews today say that Jesus didn't do, so therefore we know he wasn't the Messiah? Mm-hmm. There's certain things he did not do. He didn't conquer Rome. Nope. He didn't become this great world leader. So the one they will receive will be doing these things in the name of Judaism.
I think so.
It's really. I think your argument is very good, and very intriguing also, especially when you look at it from this perspective. We do have all of the cases, the types of Antichrist in the past. They were all Gentile.
They were.
We don't have ones that were Jewish then, but I think that you build a very interesting case that is worth. I find it fascinating.
Yeah. That's why I have no problem with people will use Antiochus Epiphanes, which I talk a lot in the article about, because in Matthew 24, Jesus makes the connection. He says, look, let the reader understand, right? Matthew 24:15, abomination of desolation. And he says, the abomination of desolation, you go, that was spoken of by Daniel, right? So then you go back to Daniel and go, well, that was Antiochus Epiphanes in 167 BC, but Jesus says it's going to happen again. So he's like, look, if you want to understand the future, you got to understand the past. And so when you go to Antiochus Epiphanes, and I have in the article 10 similarities between Antiochus and the future Antichrist, and based on the scripture, it's all there. But it is true that he was definitely a Greek. He was a Gentile. And so, but we're not limited just because that's a type. That's a type. So, but the key thing for me was that 10 Roman emperors were not Italians or Romans ethnically. They had a different ethnic group, and therefore you can still say, in many ways, he's a Gentile. Because even today, I mean, you might have some people that are Jewish that maybe have a Jewish mom and a Gentile dad. They could claim both at that moment.
And there's many secular Jews. Yeah. Even in Israel, there's a left movement over there. I was interviewing a gentleman, I think you're familiar with him, he's wearing a kippah, and we were riding up in an elevator, and I said, hey, I'm going to interview, he used to be a UN ambassador for Israel. And while we're riding up in the elevator, he says, this isn't going to be a religious interview, is it? And I said, no, what I want to do is talk about politics, is what it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get his idea from meeting with the UN and things like that. And he goes, good. And I said, well, I noticed you're wearing a kippah. He goes, of course. And I said, so you celebrate Jewish feasts? He goes, I celebrate Shabbat, I celebrate everything. Oh, so you're a religious Jew? I'm not a religious Jew.
Exactly.
Okay. He was a full-on secular Jew, but he does these things.
These cultural things.
Full-on cultural, but he's secular. Okay, and then we go back to the time of Jesus. What's the issue that Judas had with Jesus and the other religious leaders? That, again, Judas is like, this guy ain't conquering Rome. We're getting rid of this guy. And so these dynamics that, I don't know, I find it very fascinating with this conversation.
Yeah.
Looking at Daniel, the covenant, the false Messiah. Where's he going to come from? I mean, look at George Soros.
Yeah.
He was willing to sell out.
People would say that, well, that's one of the arguments against a Jewish Messiah is that, well, a Jewish Messiah would never kill his own people. You're like,
Yeah.
really? Don't you think about history?
Haven't you read the Kings of Israel?
Exactly.
What they were doing, they were killing Jewish babies.
Exactly.
Let alone
Yeah, exactly.
everything.
So that's not an argument.
No, there weren't very many good Jewish kings.
Yeah.
In fact, this book is full of sins of Israel.
Yep.
All right. So let's shift gears. This is fascinating. We do have the link provided to get Mondo's information on this article. This is great.
This Christmas, Hope for Our Times wants to say thank you. Because of your prayers and financial support, the message of hope in Jesus Christ continues to reach people all over the world. You've helped shine light in dark times, and we couldn't do it without you. The world around us is changing fast. Every day brings new headlines filled with chaos, confusion, and uncertainty. But what if these things aren't signs of everything falling apart? What if they're signs that everything is falling into place? That's the question behind the brand new book, Final Countdown, Planet Earth. In it, you'll discover how today's radical changes are actually fulfilling Bible prophecy and pointing to the soon return of Jesus. And that's not all. This Christmas, we're also including a fantastic resource, The Rapture. What happened and why? This beautifully crafted pamphlet clearly explains what the rapture is, who it's for, and why it's our blessed hope. It's the perfect tool to share with friends and loved ones, or to leave behind for those who will one day ask, what happened? Together, these two resources are our special Christmas gift to everyone who is a financial partner of Hope for Our Times. It's our way of saying, thank you for standing with us as we proclaim the truth of God's Word in a world that's desperate for answers. If you're already a partner, thank you. And if you've been thinking about partnering with us, now is the perfect time. Your support helps us live out our mission to use the prophetic Word of God as a powerful tool for evangelism, guiding people from all over the world to the hope found exclusively in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. From all of us at Hope for Our Times, Merry Christmas.